But what we will be using in this chapter, using pandas to load data. But you can see you can read in files from your computer from disks, right? One way, you can read file that you save, or you can read file from database. Misali, for example, you store some file from database, you can read them. Also, you can read data from web APIs. For example, you can read data from you can what do you call scrape data from website. You can do scraping. So there are many ways to deal with the reading data. But what we will see here is we'll use a pandas function to read a data frame, to read a data and put it in a data frame. But let's look at what we'll be using. So we will use a function called read CSV. That is the first function we'll use that allow us to read data from file. So we have a file called example1.csv, but here we are trying to show the content of the file. When you use this command called cat, this is terminal command, cat. It's used to display what is saying in the language, is saying display what is inside here. But because this is a terminal command, we use this in terminal. That is why you need to put this thing so that it will
exclamation.
Yes, if you want to run some command that that you use in terminal on Jupyter, then you need to put exclamation and do this. But in your terminal, all you need to do is you do just cut. It will output this one. But in Jupyter, for us to use, you need to use it. So for example, let me show you how we can use that in Jupyter. So yeah, we are inside this. So I can copy this guy. Because I'm inside the folder, I can say, okay, yeah, okay, I can say cut this guy. Example1, the CSV, where am I? Okay, I'm inside the example1. Okay, I'm inside, okay, the folder. So let me go back. Okay, let me just cut it, say cut. So, or for example, inside this folder, I can use ls to see what are the files inside the folder. So ls means this. So for example, I can use this is example1 CSV. When I want to see it is content, what I can do is this cut example1 the CSV. Can you see that? So when this will display the content of this file. This is what we have, what is called cat, right? So, but if you want to display the content of a file, use this function cat, not in terminal. What we need to do is to use exclamation mark here, using this guy cat. So this will give us the content of the file. Right. So this will give us the content of this file. So now how can we read this file? So this is a CSV file. So when we look at this one, is what we call comma separated file. What do you mean by comma separated? This is called CSV, comma separated file. So for you to read it, you can use the function read underscore CSV. So when we use this read underscore CSV, we now read the file, right? We can see we read the file. Now this is A, which are the headers. Can you see these are the headers? And now these are the content 1, 2, 3, 4. Can you see that? This is how we can read the file in pandas using read underscore CSV. But we can also here we can see that okay, this is something that I explained. Yeah, using cat. But using cat, you can see here I display maybe 5 items. If I have 10 million, I want to see the top 3. I can use what is called piping. This is something command line that I just piping it 3, it will output the top 3 files, right? When I say cut this guy, but I use something here, this is called pipe, and say head number. Head means give me the top 2. So this give me the top 2 files. This is something called terminal. This is what I maybe we can do some session to discuss about how you can use terminal. So this is just trying to show you what is it. But also apart from read underscore CSV, we can basically use what is called read underscore table. Read underscore table and read underscore CSV, they still do something, they work with some, so you can see that. But what about if we remove the separator here and we can just say read underscore table like this, and we have this. So you can see, look at what it gives, right? So for read table, we must specify the separator. When we specify the separator, you can it will actually read. It will perform the same thing with read CSV. So for this, we need to specify that the separator is what comma separated file. So read underscore and read CSV, they basically mean the same thing. So when we read this guy, they will read the data. So this is what, so the difference between read underscore CSV and read table is almost nothing, right? This is that. In fact, the same function is called by the source CSV delimiter. So when you call read underscore table, when you call read underscore CSV, they are calling at the background, they are calling the same function, the same method, but yeah, so that is it. So a file will not always have a header row. So we can see here, the file has a header row, but sometimes you may see that the file you have may not have header row. So let's look at this example, this file, example 2, it does not have a header row. So you can see this one, it just have 1, 2, 3, 4. Unlike this one where we saw it, you can see it has a header row. Now, how can you read a file without header row in pandas? So for you to read a file without the header row, you can see we say cat this. What you need to do is say tell pandas the header row is none. So when you read the file, you say header row is none. Now pandas will automatically name your files, the header with numbers. So we can see now here pandas automatically name the files we have, our header files, to be what? What is the name it gives them?
Numbers.
Yes, exactly. So we can see here pandas give the header files name with numbers, that is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is how you can read files in pandas. We basically use read underscore CSV. If the file does not have a header, you can use header is none, but we can also use read underscore table. They are basically the same, read underscore CSV and read underscore table, but if you are using read underscore table, you need to provide this. So we can see here that read underscore, it does have many arguments, right? So let me show you. Look at some of the argument this read underscore CSV. It has a file path file. Can you see? Look at over 550. Look at all this. These are the argument of read CSV, read underscore. So it has many, many arguments that you can do a lot. So header is none, is one of them. So if you look at them here, can you see header? So you can put the header. Can you see that whatsoever? So there are many scenarios that you want to read your file, but you need to change it to a particular format. But the book, what the book gave us is like it. I list some stuff. We have. Okay, this is not this one. So this is some of the what we just started, read underscore CSV for when you want to read a file. But pandas has many other methods for reading file, reading Excel, reading HTML file, HDF file, and reading JSON file, FISA file. There are many kind of files that reading Pickle, reading SQL, SPS. There are many methods that you can read your file. But what we are seeing now is read CSV, reading CSV file, right? But there is some situation whereby you have your file here. We can see this file because it does not have a header. Pandas give it automatically some names, right? 0, 1, 2, 3. But what about if you want to name your headers after reading the file? Then you can have an argument called names and now provide the name of the headers. So when I read this guy, what do you expect will be the output of this guy when we run it?
It will be, the headers will be A, B, C, D.
Exactly. Yes.
Followed by,
yeah. So this is the, so you see, instead for us to allow pandas to automatically name your headers with something, you can give the header file. So this is something as well. But sometimes you can see this guy, maybe we want to, this message is the index. It should be the index here in pandas. Yes. You remember in data frame, we have index, we have the
index.
Yes. So you can specify that this guy is the index. So we can say, okay, this is a name. Read PD, read the CSV, names is names. Yeah, I provide the names is this name, this list. But I said index that column is a message column. It telling that this column is the index column. So when I run this guy, this will be like, this is the index column, this is my, Or you can use this way. For example, you said in read this file, you say names is the names because you specify the name, but index column is 4. You give an integer. Instead for you to give the name, you can say you give the name because this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this will give you also the same file formatted.
0, 1, 2, 3.
Yes. Any question before we move on? Any questions?
No, Dr. Iskile. No question.
Okay, so let's look at another example. So let's look at this file, cut to print the output. So we can see this is a file. We can see this is a key. This is key. This is value. This. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, which is 4 column, right? So what is happening is that in this event, you want to form a hierarchical index. That is what you call hierarchical index. That is the index here is form of hierarchical. So maybe you have not seen it, but sometimes you can see it. So if you want to say the index column, you give the key 1 and key 2. This is so let's run this and see what will happen. So look at this hierarchical index. We have key 1, we have key 2. So what is saying is that this key 1, key 2, these are both the index of this data frame. This is the data. Look at this is the data, but it has 2 index because this is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So this when it put 1, it will not repeat the 1 here because this is 2, 2, 2. It will not repeat the 2, 2, 2. But this is key 2. Key, you can see it has unique index, right? So this is some scenario where you can have basically to hierarchy. This is what we call hierarchical index. Yeah, hierarchical index of your data frame. Yeah. So let's look at another example. So what this chapter is basically doing is basically trying for us to show us how we can read our data set in different form, because you can have data in different format in the world. So you need to know how to read that. Okay.
But data, I think it's like the most popularly used is the CSV.
Exactly. So most popularly, read CSV is one of the best.
Excel
yes, maybe say the Excel. So if it is Excel, pandas also add Excel, but almost always you can see we always have some. Yeah. So if you have read Excel, you can use this function. But read CSV is a general way, something that we use every day to read our data set. Yeah. So, but yeah, you can. It's good to know other when you see them. Yeah. So we have another issue. Okay, which example? So you can see this guy. This is another example we see. This we have a data which is
sorry.
Yes.
Sorry, Doctor.
Yeah.
Like it's a problem I'm having with that CVS file. Initially, it was in Excel file, and I converted it to CSV. Maybe if I read it as Excel, I may not experience that.
Yes. Try to read Excel.
Yeah, I will try and use it. I'll read it as an Excel. Maybe
yes.
I may.
So I think
that problem.
Yes. So maybe there is some kind of conversion you have, right? Maybe
yeah. I have converted. That is why some features converted to objects.
Yeah, why? So yeah.
So I will just read it as an Excel.
Yes, you just read it because funders come with that function, reading Excel. Whether it is SLX. Whether
my convention is CSV, that is why I converted it to CSV.
Yeah, I know, Gani. But idan kai reading size reading Excel, reading this one, they returning the data frame. So you like find the machine learning, anything from your machine learning stuff. Because when you read Excel, all this data, all these functions, when you read them, they will return your data frame in data. They will return it in this kind of data frame like this. Do you understand? Yeah, why in that? Yes. Yes, so you can do your machine learning and do your whatsoever. Yeah, so this is good to even see your problem maybe along the way. Yeah. Yeah. So So where are we? Okay. This is the problem we are. No, not this guy. So this is another problem. You can see this is TXT. It's not CSV. It's TXT, right? So now when I have this guy, you can look at it here. I have it in one different format, right? It's a file. Let's look at this guy, TST. Let me go here. I have the folder, example. Where is this guy? TST. Yeah. What is the name? Its name? Example 3, right? Yeah, example 3, the TST. Let's look at the guy. So look at it here. This the guy. So we have this data is in TXT format A, B, C, right? We have this as maybe the column. So now we want to read this at data frame to we want to read it to be a data frame using pandas. What we can do here is we now first look at open it and see what is happening. I just look at it. Now what we can see is that in this case you can pass a regular expression as delimiter. So here the separator, because what is the separator here is just space. Can you see it? It's just a space, right? New line. Can you see a new line? Because in your read test CSV here, it's not comma here separated. If you look at it here, it's not comma separated. Can you see that? It's not comma. This is not comma. Okay, let me go back.
Yeah. It's not CSV.
Yeah, look at it. Can you see what is differentiate between the ganan zuwa nan, the ganan zuwa nan? Kunga ai comma ne ko?
Yeah, that is why it is called CSV.
Yeah, well, that is why it's called comma separated file, right? But TXT, what is the different? What is tsakanin wannan da nan? Wannan me tsakanin su nan?
Just like minus.
Nah, ba minus ba.
It's a space.
It's a space. Ajiya yawa.
Okay, just a space.
Yawa, it's just a space. So ya kamata ka gaya wa shi file ɗinka su read underscore sai cewa abinda za ka yi reading ɗin nan tsakanin su space ne tsakanin su. To wannan ne yake gaya masa tsakani. Wannan abin yana nufin tsakanin su space ne. Can you see that? Which is somehow what we call regular expression. You don't know regular expression, but it's something. But just be aware that it's telling them the space. So when we read this guy, we'll return. Look at how it returns it. Can you see that? Can you see that? So you can see this guy return it as your normal data frame, and you can use machine learning whatsoever in your. Yeah. So the basic idea is this. We want to read any data outside and bring it into our analysis as a form of data frame whatsoever in whichever format it is. We want to bring it to be in this structure so that we can do our machine learning. So because there was one fewer column name than the number of rows, data rows, because we have fewer columns, 1, 2, 3, read underscore CSV infer that the first column should be the data frames index in this spatial case. So, but look at it. We didn't specify what is the index column, right? This is just the data set. Look at the data set. This is the data set, right? This and here from the data set, this is the index column, right? So pandas can even predict what is your index. How it predicts is that because there are fewer columns than the row. We have how many rows? 1, 2, 3, 4. Amma column guda uku. So pandas in how it is implemented will predict that this is just the index and these are your column. Yeah, so we have many kind of argument. You can see here, we use separator, but there are many things that you can do with read underscore CSV. It has many parameters. One of them we have, for example, skip rows, which will skip. If you don't want to see some rows here, when you read the file, you can skip it. There are many things, NA values, comment, a lot of them. So in the book, it's the number of rows to read from the beginning file whatsoever. You can do that. So let's look at some of the example. Let me show us this guy. Let me show us this guy. So you can see this guy basically has the first row is what? Hey, it's some garbage. Someone just give you a data, and this data has some kind of garbage in it, right? And this is just garbage, and this guy is also, you don't want this guy, right? This is not something you see in the data. You don't want this guy, right? So when you are reading the file, you can tell pandas that remove this, don't load my data with this row, don't load my data with this row, don't load my this data, only load. So that is, we can use what is called skip row. So this is how we skip rows. 0, that is, it will skip this row. Skip 2, it will keep 0, 1, 2, it will keep the 3, it will keep 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, that is 2, 3. It will skip these rows. And now let's read this guy and see what will happen. So look at, we now have our data set in the correct format way. Yeah. Any question before we move on? Any question? Are we good? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So this means that our data now is in good format that we can do machine learning. But sometimes you can there is an issue of missing values. So let's look at this guy. We can see we have missing values here, NA, which is missing value. Let's read the data set. Right, we can have missing value here. Can you see that? NA. So sometimes you can tell when you are reading the file, you can tell what will be replaced as missing value. So we have argument called NA value, which is NA means NA. So put null wherever you see that. Put what we call null in that. So when we read our file, then wherever we have NA, it will now be replaced with null. So this this meaning is null, yeah, it's null, right, at the background. But you can also specify some other thing, like here we can say, okay, different NA sentinel can be specified. For example, in this column, you can say this is kind of the, if you have NA, this is the kind of stuff you want. So here you can see I have create something sentinel. I said under the column message, foo, NA, under the column something, we have two, put it as a NA null. So let's load it. I have pd.read the CSV. I have NA values sentinel. So let me run this guy and see what will happen. So what this guy means is that under the column something, to put NA, you can see that NA, right? If you, wherever you see so under the column message, wherever you see NA, wherever you see foo and NA, just be it to be the, you can see foo is now NA, right? So this is something that maybe sometimes you want to check your values. For example, you read your data set and you see that number maybe when you X or Y and it's a number. So you want to change this number to NA. So you can use this way to actually change it. Yeah. Yeah. Any question before we move on? Right. Okay. So now I'm reading text file in pieces. So one way you can read your files in pieces. What we mean by that is like sometimes you want to read large number of files, right? So when you read files, if it has like number of rows 1 million, when I read it, it may try to actually populate my whole screen. So you can actually using pandas tells the number you want. So one way here is we use some option PD, that option that display max rows, meaning that when you read some file, display the maximum row you display if it is pandas file 10 rows. So when I run this guy, so here I read a file here, you can see it, read the CSV. When I run this guy, it will, so you can see here 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now here it give me the top 4. Can you see that? The top 4, 5. Then it will give you the bottom 5. How many files do I have? I have 10,000 files, right? I have 10,000 files, but it does not give me the 10,000 file. It gives me the maximum number I want because I use this the option this one. But apart from this option, you can also use what we call, when you read and read underscore CSV, you can specify the number of rows you want. So let me say I say give me 20 rows. So PD underscore read the CSV, give me 20 rows. Look at it. It will try to because I already set this guy. Can you see? I already set this guy to 10. So that is why this override this stuff, right? So this is just another way it give you, let me see. Yeah, for example, here you can see that I change it to 5. Now it give me this number of rows. So I change it to 3. Number of rows is equals to 3. So it, yeah. So this is one way actually to read your data, and we should be familiar with all this stuff. Because when you are doing machine learning, you want to see some part of the data. You don't want to see the all part of the data. Yep. Any question? Okay. Any question? So who can tell us now if we want to see the last part of the data? Like now here, this is telling us, showing us the what we call the head. Now, do you remember one function that will show us the maybe last part of the data frame?
Yeah, it is .10.
Exactly. So here I even show it to you. So here we can use this function. Actually, this guy, we can call this PD, right? We have PD, right? We have PD. No. What is the, okay, we didn't. Okay, let me show this guy like this. PD. Oh, I'm using R syntax here to assignment. So PD file. Okay, let me call this guy file. So here I have a file. I can see file detail. Yeah. So you can see this one give me the okay. When I call this function called tell, it will show me the last five. But when I want to see the last maybe 7, I can put this number here at the end, tell. You can see it shows me, right? Yeah. But what about if I have, what is another function? Can we use another function called head? What this head does?
The first 5.
Yes, the first 5. Can you see that? But I can also have this something like this, and it shows me the head. So these are some ways you should know why you are doing your data analysis. And now we have learned pandas, we have learned the core features. Now we are trying to go through one by way. Now, the first thing before we start doing data analysis is to bring your data into your environment. So this is why this chapter started reading your data, different way to read your data and bring it before. The next chapter, we'll start doing data analysis. But this chapter just explain for us how we can bring your data, our data. Okay, any question before we move on? Okay, now we have seen you can read data, but you can also, after reading data, what you can do, you can also write data, right? You can write it to the disk. After you finish everything, you can do writing. So we can do write our data. We have this function, read underscore CSV. We read this file. Now we can write this. We can use what is called to CSV. So what this means that to CSV will basically write that thing to your CSV. Just we read then to CSV. So here what we are looking is to CSV. We are actually taking this data. Can you see this data? We are taking this data, saving it to a CSV, and this is the name of the file we want to save. But we are not taking the whole column of the data. We are taking only one column of the data, which is column A. So you can see this is data. I have column A, right? So you can, okay, let me see that, what is the name of the data? Okay, data all, let me see data all. Let me, okay. Let me use this guy. So you can see I want to save this data frame. I read it here, but I want to save, I finish everything, maybe doing some my analysis on it. I want to save it to my computer. So what we can use the data to CSV, and you give the location. One example here, I want to put it inside the folder example, because I have a folder where all the files are. Can you see the folder example? It means put it inside the example, and this is the name. So the name of the file now is data all. So when I run this guy, so inside my example folder, if I don't want to put it inside example, I can just use data all. So when I run this guy, it will put this not in this folder, but here. So when I run this guy, so if you look at this one here, I will have data all. Data. Can you see data all? Data all, right? But if I want to put inside the folders, so you need to actually specify the folder you want. Yeah, so that's yeah, example. So when I run this guy, my data all will be inside this folder, which is example. So if you go here, you will have data all. So you can see this is data all, and now this is what we do. I can use look at it. This is SV, which is a plugin. So you can see I have my data. These are the column of my data, right? So this is basically what we can use, how to write data in CSV. Any question before we move on? All right, so we can move on, right? So that is how we, but another one here is that maybe you don't want to save the data completely. You can say, okay, data the CSV. You can say you want to select one column. So one column A, this will save this data, the column A only. So let's look at it. Now here we'll save my file under example out the CSV. Now I can look at the file using cat here just to see what is the file. You can see it is only single file, right? We can go to the example folder. This is the example folder. We have out. Where is yeah, this is out. We can see that. And when we come here, I can say this CSV. This is one plugin in VS Code that allow you. So you can see you have only column, right? This guy, right? So Yeah. But what you can see here is that when we use that a single file, I can close this guy. I can close this guy. Conclude this guy. Yeah, but what you can see that this file, funders take the index or to be column 1, then the second one to be column 2. But this data, we take only one column. So funders take this guy to be first column and here to be the second column. But what we can do is when we want to read that kind of file, so when we want to read this file, read CSV, look at how pandas gonna do that, right? It takes the index to be in some column. So you can say index is column 0. You can specify the index to be column 0. So when you read the file, you can see this is the index, this is the column. Because you remember the file has index already. This is the index. And when we take this guy, it will take this guy and this guy. So when you read this file, you need to tell Panda that column 0 is the index. So that is what is happening here. But you can also actually, series has a function set to CSV. You can use series. Remember, we have pandas and series, right? So we just create an example of series here, and we can see this series here as well. So this is our series, right? Now we can see here, I create some index here from 10 to 17, which is this, right? I call this index. Now I create a series, pd.series arrange of 7 numbers, but it is index is I'm give them this index that I generated there. So you can see this is index, right? So you can save this one also to, because it's series, you can save it to file. Here you can see we are using series, which is the object series, right? And we can say to CSV. So you can save the series. So you can see this is a series. Now when I save it here, I can go to my folder into see example. I have series, I guess. We can see that series. You can see that. Yeah, so you can see the series, and I can be able to watch it here, see it. So you can see it, right? This is the index, this is the column, right? So, but remember, if it is only one column, you need to provide the index column so that you can read it. So when I want to read it, yeah, I can read it in pandas format. Yeah, any question before we continue? Right. Okay. So that's something good. We can oh, sorry, we can move on with that if we have we don't have any question. Any question or not? Okay, so working with delimited formats. So it is possible to load most form of tabular data from Bix using function like pandas this read CSV. So if you have some kind of tabular data format, it is possible to load them all with read.csv. But sometimes if you want to change your data frame to some format, you need to do some kind of manual process, right? So let's look at some data here. We have a data here. You can see this is a data frame and it's comma separator, right? We can, okay, can we use read CSV here? We can say PD. Let's look at this guy, PD dot read CSV, and we said this guy example possible, and it does. You can see my Google Copilot is predicting automatically the code. I didn't write this guy, right? It's Google Copilot that is predicting what I want to write. So you can see here. Okay, let me disable this guy, because you can see here I read the file, right? This guy, but sometimes sometimes because it does not have a header, I put header not. But sometimes you want to read your file and change it maybe to dictionary or some stuff like that, right? So how can you do that? There are several ways to do that. So for example, let's look at how we can read this file and now change it to maybe pandas dictionary. So let's look at it. So here we can use the import CSV for import CSV is built-in Python file that reads CSV. But remember, before you read in Python, the built-in Python way, before you open a file, you read a file, you must open it, right? So here we use open function to create an object F. This is how it is done in pandas in Python, natural Python. Before you read any Python, you can see in pandas, we just use read underscore save, you open this file, right? But in Python, which is you need to open the file. Here you can see F, open this, then when you open it here, you can use the reader object again. Then you use CSV, the reader object, you call it to try to open this guy. So when you do this, let me show you what will happen. So the reader here will give you a CSV object. It's not even the file. How can you see the file, the content? So you need to iterate through the object using, for example, for line in reader, which is this object, print the line. So let's look at what will happen. So you can see it print the line, right? For reader, a line, print this line. So this is some ways you should know that you will have several scenario to work with this. So given a file, you open it, you use reader from CSV module on top of the object that you open. And now what this will return an object. And now you need to iterate through the object to view the content. So you can see we view the content now. So this means that now with this content, but remember what is happening here is that using this, when you use open, you must close the connection in Python. So when you use open, you must close the connection. So for us to do the best way to close the connection, in Python, we use what is called with open. So instead of you to use this, because here, I think when you finish everything reading, you need to use what we call, we need to call, I think, f.close. Yeah, f.close. Can you see? f.close, because that is how Python. If you don't know how to do this, I will refer you to go and read CSV. I mean, in our book, in the book we did for Python, we did this stuff. That is, you need to open a file, read it, and now close this. So if we don't want this a lot of stress, what we can use them in one single line. How do you do it? You use what we call with. So you say with, you say open, you put the file as F, that is the object. So you look at it here. We said open. This is the object that is returned as F. Can you see that? So with that, with open this and put the object. This is it. Now you can see here where we read the object. Now we come and do this for line in white. So here we can do it inside this loop. So it means that now this step where we have CSV, the reader, will now be inside our loop here. Can you see it here? CSV, the read F, it read the object and return what we call a list. So this means that this file, we want to return the list. So the result list, you can see that it is now in form of list. Can you see it? It is now in form of a list, right? So there are several ways you can actually work with your data. So you can see now we have it in form of a list, right? In form of a list. So we want to change this list to maybe data to dictionary. What we can do is basically we can see that this one here is the header of the file. This is the header of the file. This is the header of the file, right? If we go back to see the file, our original file, this is it, right? This is the header. These are the headers, right? 0, 1, 2. These are the headers. Now I want to change this guy. This what about ABC? What are ABC? Example 7. ABC is just the value of the first line, right? The first value. So what we can do is here I said, okay, line 0, that is the first value, should be the header. I assign it here, line 0, and line 1 to 2 to the end, that is the values will be assigned to the values. So here when I run this, I can now come here and use dictionary, what we call dictionary, this what is it called? Dictionary, what is this called? Dictionary comprehension. So dictionary comprehension will allow us to turn our data frame into some kind of dictionary. So this is something that don't bother ourselves. This is something that they explain in the chapter. But the main idea here is this. There are some situations whereby you want our data frame, like this one in CSV, we want to change it from CSV to some other format, like dictionary or whatever. So in that case, for us to use read underscore CSV to read the file, no, we can use some Python built-in ways. So we use this, we open the file. When we open the file, we can do whatsoever we like here. What we can do here is we iterate everything like here, the line 0, what we mean the first one here, we will assign the headers and now the values here. So here we do what we call dictionary comprehension for HB. We zip this header and values here because values will have many values. We zip them, and now this we will have something like this. A is this, and that is why we zip the value. We have 1 1. The value from here, 1 and 1 will be 2 and 2, 3 and 3. So this may look confusing, but if you don't understand it, just don't worry about it. It's not part of what we will be doing in day to day. But what we should understand now, what we have seen so far, is that for you to read any file, you read underscore CSV is the gold standard. Yeah, if you have any file, you can read underscore CSV. And if it is not comma separated, you can use a separate argument to basically tell what kind of file is that. Right, so that is about that. The next thing we want to see is what is called JSON file. Now we understand what is called CSV, and we use read underscore CSV to read it. But there is other kind of files around that you can have, which is called JSON. So JSON is one of the files that was widely used. It is much free from CSV in the sense that when you have your file format in JSON, you can read it. It is lightweight, and you can read it in many applications like web programming whatsoever. So JSON is one of the most widely used data structure also in data science. You can see about what, for example, when you are doing web scraping, your data will not be in CSV. It will be in somehow JSON format. So we should know how to read a JSON file and how we can turn it into data frame. So how does JSON file looks like? This is an example of JSON file. How does it look like? Can you see we have something like this, this and this. So what is this? We have this guy, open bracket, and now look, it looks like a dictionary, right? We have the key, we have the value. Can you see? Now we have comma. We have the key, we have the value, right? We have the key here with a null value and comma. We have a key, we have a, so what we can see that the key here, we have a single string. This is a key, but its value is what? List. This is a key, its value is not. This is a key, its value is what? Is a dictionary, right? So it means you can have a key, but you can have any kind of value, right? This is what we call JSON file. This is something that you will always be seeing. Example, I said if you want to scrape data from internet, the data will be in just JSON. So now how can we do that? So yeah, so JSON is a very nearly valid file in Python code, with exception of it is null value. So and some other noises such as just allowing trailing comma. So we can see that here JSON file is just like a valid Python file, right? We remember here in our dictionary, you can also have the key and different kind of values, right? So this is just like a Python file. The only difference is that JSON does not allow some other stuff. For example, in we can have just of this null value. We can in our file in our Python we don't have null value, and also there is some noise such as the end comma list. So in Python, for example, if we have a list, this is the first list, second list, last list. In Python, it's valid to add comma at the end of your list. It's right to add comma. But if you have this guy, if it is JSON, JSON does not allow this. So let me run this guy. So when I run this guy, and now I read it here. For example, read it here. So I read it here. But if I have comma at the end of this, which is valid in Python, just to have a comma at the end of your list, when I run this guy, JSON cannot be able to read this guy. So I can see this when I read this guy, I can have an error. So this is what they are saying, that there are some issues that they actually are not the same with Python stuff, but we should know. So the basic type are objects. So the basic type object array list whatsoever. So the basic type can be a list. Can you see that? It can use dictionary. It can use a list is whatsoever. All of the keys in the order must be string. Gaba a key of the key. This is the key must be string. Can you see that?
must be string, string, must be string, must be string. Can you see that? All of the key must be string. There are several Python libraries for reading JSON. So there are many other libraries that you can use to read JSON. But here we can use standard JSON reader function in Python. We will also use, see how pandas do that. So now for us to read this file, if you have you do web scraping and you have this, if you want to read it, you will use a function called, you need to use this module. You don't need to install JSON. It's already there in Python. All you need is to import it. Import JSON module. When you import JSON module, now we can say JSON.load. So this is the function answer JSON that load the object. So what is our JSON file? It's called object, right? So we can load it here. You can see we load it, and now here we output the result. So here you can see we read a JSON file, right? So this is how you basically read a JSON file, just like we use read underscore CSV, but the only difference is that here we use reader JSON.load. Now, when you want to also write JSON file, you use what is called dumps. So more or less like where we see read underscore CSV with read. We also saw that to write a file, we use read to CSV, right? We use to a CSV. Yeah, we use dot to CSV. That is to write file in CSV form. We use to a CSV. So also in JSON, what we use is we use this guy in JSON, JSON the dumps. So this means that here you can see we have a we have a JSON result. Now, if I want to save this file JSON into a file, what I need to do is say JSON.dump result. Yeah, so this will dump this guy as kind of a JSON file. So this is basically how to do that. But you can also actually read JSON file and return it as a data frame. So how can we do that? So JSON file, you can actually read JSON file to convert it into different format. But as you know, in data analysis, the widely used format is data frame. So if you have a JSON file, you can read it and convert it into data frame. So let's look at how we can do that. So here I said, okay, pd.data frame. Now the first argument I said, result civilian. What I mean here, if you look at data frame, it's called result, right? Result. But I have many keys, right? Places, civilian. So you can see I say civilian. I want to take only this column, only this data value. So here I said result, that is why is this. And now I said columns, name, and age. So you can see here, this guy, civilian, if you come here, civilian, we have name. Can we see that? Right? The name. And we have name is Scott, age is 30, pet is this, name is Katie, age is 30, pet is pets, we give this guy, right? So what this means that when we are taking this guy, we want to specify the column. So here you can see we said, okay, we take this and the column's name and age. So when we run this, we have this column, name, and age. So here what we take, only column name and age. So we take this civilian, but we only take name and what? Age. Name and age. Can you see that? So it will take this as name and Katie, and age is 38. So it will take. So what we are saying in essence is that you can convert your JSON to data frame, and not you can convert not everything. You can select some part of the JSON to return it into data frame. But also we can use read pandas read underscore JSON. So here you can see we use JSON.load to read JSON file. So pandas come with another function, useful function, which is called read underscore JSON, which automatically convert JSON into data frame. So let's look at it. So here we have another example called JSON. It's called example is called JSON. You can see it. This is a JSON file. B it is. So JSON file is just like a dictionary. You can see that, and we have this because we have equal stuff A, B, C. This is JSON file, right? So we can use pandas read underscore JSON to read this file. Now, when we read this, the good thing is that pandas will now automatically change this file to data frame. Unlike this, using this built-in Python, when you want to change this to panda, we load the function, we need to specify some stuff, and now do that. This guy, when you read it automatically, it will change your file to data frame. Yeah. So yeah, any question? Inatutapia. Any question? Yeah, so if you need to export data from pandas to JSON, one way to do is JSON method and series data frame. So you can use to JSON here to basically also save your data into to export your data from. You can use to JSON, all like this guy. So here you can see what we do. JSON.dumps, right? Can you see? Just that is how we export. But if you here, when you read a JSON file, we use read JSON, and when we want to save our data frame, if you need to export data from pandas to JSON, then one way is use this guy, data here. You can see our data, we can set to JSON, right? So here you export it to JSON format. Right, any question? Okay, so there, as I said, this chapter is basically talking about how you can read files in different formats, how you can read. So we now see two different ways. We read a CSV file, and now we saw how you read JSON file to turn it into data. And the main aim, the main goal is whatsoever your data is, read it and convert it to be in a data frame format so that you can do your machine learning stuff. The next thing here they discuss in the book is reading XML and HTML, web scraping stuff. I think we, because of time, we may skip this guy, but you can read the chapter. It's basically still the same. It's nothing much about it. There is also parsing a SLMS object. You can read that. I skip that. Go to the one of the important part, which is binary data, which is called pickle, that will be useful for machine learning and other stuff. Yeah, so the next one we will see is what is called binary data format, or pickle. So what is pickle? In Python, you can use pickle module to serialize object and save them to file, and you can deserialize them using what is called pickle. Now, pickle is, you can see, binary data format, because when we save our data into CSV, it is not in binary format, right? It is in some format that it automatically need to do what we call encoding. And that kind of thing, it can take more memory and it become less faster. But one way to do this kind of stuff that save your data in a equivalent binary format is using what we call pickle, that is binary data format. The data, you save it in a binary format. So pickle has one main advantage over the other. You can use it to store any Python object, whether it is CSV, whether it's text, because you are just saving it as a binary format. It is original form. So one of the most widely used functionality is saving machine learning models after training is complete. So pickle is used when you train your machine learning model. You just save the pickle, and now you can use the pickle later without retraining the model. And yeah, we'll see that when we come to do our machine learning. But pickle also has some disadvantages that is specific to Python, and also is version specific. If I use Python version 9 to pickle something, if you go to Python version 10, the pickle object may not work there. So that's some issues. So let's look at what we mean by that. So here is pandas data frame. And now when I want to save this pandas data frame to pickle object, what I can do is this frame dot to pickle. Can you see dot to pickle? And now this is the location I want to save. Now frame pickle, that is the object name. So you can see I don't say .csv. Can you see that? It will just save it as pickle object. This is the name I want to give the object, pickle object. But if you look at it in our data, when we are using CSV, let me go back. When we are using CSV, when you are using CSV here, this guy. Okay. The CSV, when we want to write, no, not this guy.
yeah, to CSV. Look at it. When you want to save in CSV, we say cd.to.csv. We say the name of the order series, and we put dot, the file format you want to save, right? So here you can see we don't provide that, so Pickle will automatically like this. Why is this guy? Where this guy? So here you can see, okay, we said to Pickle, right? We just give the name of the Pickle. When we store this guy, it saved it as what we call Pickle format, right? So now here, if we go to my data frame, my folder, frame, right? Frame. Can you see frame Pickle, right? It is not in CSV, it's not in .txt, but it is just a Pickle object, right? Now, what we can do the next is to read the file. So we can read the file here, basically using read Pickle, right? We can say read Pickle, and when we read Pickle, yeah, we read our data. So you can see here, your data is not in CSV, it's not in TXT, it is in binary format. A binary format, you know, a machine and computer, machine read, understand in binary form. So Pickle object save your data in binary. So there is no that kind of overhead with storing your data and read the CSV. And always when you have the data, the Pickle object will always be occupy less memory because there is no conversion of CSV encoding and stuff like that. Yeah. So that's that about the Pickle option. But here they say caution, Pickle is only recommended as a short-term storage format. The problem is that it is hard to guarantee that the format will be stable over time. An object Pickle today may not on Pickle with later version of libraries. So it has this kind of issue. When you use Python 6, it may not work correctly. It may not work in Python version 10 or 9. So you just need to know that. But when you are working on the same version, you are not trying to do your store your data and use it in the next year or next version. It's perfect to use that. That is Pickle format. That is what we also call HDF5 format, which is also another format that can be used to store large data, which is called H5. You can see, so we can use pandas also PD, the HDF store, H5. So you can see this is another kind of data frame stuff you should know. Let me use this. So this chapter is basically giving us an idea on a lot of kind of possibilities. We can see a lot of kind of data frame. So we can see here, we are reading also another H5. So if we go here,
Doctor, is this for Hadoop format?
Yeah, so that is what we call I have not used HDF5 format actually before. So I don't know whether it is called Hadoop format, but I normally see the file in HDF formats, and you can see it. Yeah, you can Google and see what is the meaning of HDF format. HDF, yeah, format. What is hierarchical data frame version? So you can see I just hierarchical data format version 5. So it's an open source file format that supports large, complex, heterogeneous data. So this kind of format is a kind of format that is used in databases in remote, some stuff remote. Yeah. So you can use pandas, come with a solution to store it and read it. So this is some, just like read CSV. CSV is what we use in our normal computer, right? Read file and store it. But there is other format which is for large, storing large data. It's not efficient to store them in CSV, but yeah, so pandas come with another solution, and this is one way to do that. So we may not look at it here. Oh, okay, let me just read it. What's happening? What's happening? Missing optional dependency PyTable. So maybe they use pip-conda to install PyTable. So here it wants me to install something, but I don't need this HD5. So when you come, you can install, you can try it, but I don't need that. So let's skip. So finally, what is this? Reading Microsoft Excel file. So you can see you can read Microsoft Excel file. So you can use pd.excel file. Yeah, you can just read the file. So this chapter is just basically, but this guy, you can see it return the object here. It just data stored in a sheet. You can also read a sheet. Look at it. You can read a sheet in the Excel file. Yeah, you can see you can read a particular sheet because Excel has many sheets. So you can look at that one. You can use read Excel and now put the file and now put the this guy. Okay. Yeah, I think that is it. You can use Excel writer. Okay, if you want to write into Excel format, to write pandas data to Excel format, first create an object called Excel writer, then write it. So create Excel writer object. If you want to write it in Excel format, you create an object using Excel writer. So this is the object, and now you can use to write to Excel and put the object. Can you see that? Put the object and now put the sheet you want to save the file in Excel and use it. So yeah, so this is basically how you can use interacting.
So what is the main difference between this read Excel and read Excel file?
Which
I think
one?
there are two functions. Read Excel file and read Excel. Yeah, this
okay.
one, yeah. I think
okay.
it is like there are two functions.
Yeah. So we can see here to use Excel, create an instance by passing pass. Oh, so here I think the best one is here we have PD the read Excel for passing tabular Excel sheet in a data frame object. See this guy. Okay, so what is this guy is doing is, you can see here we read Excel, it turns an object, right? It is not a data frame. But what we can see here, okay, let me, what we can see here is that when you read Excel, it automatically return the PD data frame. Yeah, just look at these examples. So they do give examples. So here, for example, you can see read Excel. We can read the Excel file here, and we say the index column is column 0. For example, here you can see we didn't provide the index column 0, and it assumed this. Yeah, you can see index column. I'm waiting for GitHub Copilot to do prediction. Yep, something like this. Let me run this guy. Oh. Yeah, you can see we now have something better. So I think, yeah, so when we look at read Excel, so there, yeah, you can see what it does, right? Yeah, so they have many options that you can read it and find out. So I think the find, okay, what about this one? You can see this guy. Let's look at support engine. You look at it, support all style Excel file formats. It support all style Excel file. Yeah, so I think that's the difference, but you can check. So yeah, but I think for the file, what you are working on, read underscore Excel will now read your file. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
and you can save it with PD read underscore to Excel. We'll do that. Okay, so that is what we can do today. And the next chapter, I think, but they are interacting with API, that is scraping the data. We have not discussed them here, but we just discussed what is more important, read CSV. Yeah, you can read that on your own. But the next chapter we will see is data cleaning. So we can see now here what we do, we read our data. So the next chapter, what we'll be seeing is data cleaning. Like now, after you read your data, how can you clean your data? Okay, let me share the screen again. So where is this guy? So so where is my brother? Okay, Firefox data. So we can see now we have do this today data loading.